All right, well, thanks for coming. What a day. Beautiful. Let me do my pitch for the Friends of the Library. My name is Cindy. We are the ones who sponsor these programs. We have them every fourth Tuesday of the month. A variety of things. We like to have local authors. We like to have photographers. Next month, Tahoe Rim Trail people are going to be here. So if you're interested in doing that or finding out more about it, come next month for that. Let me tell you something about the Friends of the Library. We are just a small nonprofit group. We support the library with whatever they need, books, supplies, anything. We also have book sales 3 times a year. We also have a book club that is the third Wednesday of the month. And we just like to support the library as much as we can. So with that, I'm going to make this quick. I'm going to introduce our guest tonight, Jared Manninen. I'll tell you just a little bit about him so then we can get started with all of the beautiful photography. Jared moved here in 2005 from the Midwest. He's an artist, he's a writer, he's an avid hiker, a cross-country skier, an amateur naturalist, and a fantastic photographer. If any of you were here last year, you know that. He's going to show us photos this year of the Tahoe Big Year from 2024. He's also being sponsored by TINS, Tahoe Institute of Natural Science. If you're familiar with them, they're a great group based up in Truckee. So if you are interested, you can also find out a lot more about Jared on his YouTube channel and also his blog as well. So with that, I'm going to introduce you to Jared, and we're going to get started with the photography. Cool.
I'm going to get the slideshow rolling. It's mostly my photos, so that you don't have to stare at me the whole time.
What's the name of the YouTube channel?
If you just look up Jared Manninen, you'll find it. Yeah, right there. And the blog that I have is TahoeTrailGuide.com. It's hiking, backpacking, cross-country skiing. I'm going to try to capture a decent audio of this presentation so that maybe I can post it as a video along these slideshows for everyone who has not shown up tonight, of which I have a bunch of friends that didn't quite make it. But yeah, thank you all for coming. It's great to see so many friends, old and new. And I don't mean just by age-wise. Thank you to the Friends of the Library, the staff here at the library, and then Tahoe Institute for Natural Science for putting together these types of projects, programs, citizen science-based experiences, allowing us to share some of the cool stuff that many of us locals do. There's Will, the director of Tahoe Institute for Natural Science, right there, walking in. So,
Seat up here, Will. Will.
All right. So as I'm going through, I'm going to kind of just jump right in. We're going to talk about. I want to talk a little bit about the photos to give you some context. These should be on a 17-second turnover, so if anyone notices that they're super fast, I'll try to figure that out. But these are the photos of birds that I documented last season. So 2024 was a Tahoe Big Year, and that basically is this annual or this year-long project, citizen science project, friendly competition where you have to find as many bird species in the calendar year within a boundary, within this Tahoe Truckee boundary. And these photos are of all the birds that I found during this time. They're numbered in chronological order. That's literally like the 7th bird that I saw last year. It's Cooper's hawk, and I saw it on the 1st of January. So that's pretty much how I have these slides, set up here. And just note, as you're looking at these kind of the months, you'll see progressively that there's a far fewer birds seen in the latter months of the year. So got a lot on the first day of the year. We had a big day, many of us. And these aren't all necessarily like the nicest photos that I've ever taken. Taking pictures for diagnostic, for identifying features is one thing. getting really creative and nice looking clean shots is a whole other matter. So my primary goal was to like get shots of all the birds. Now with these Tahoe Big Years, you don't necessarily have to get pictures of all the birds, and as a result, it's you just have to see them. Whereas I wanted to go a little bit above and beyond because I am somewhat of an overachiever and I like to do more work than I absolutely need to. Therefore, I did get photos of every bird that I saw except for one, and you'll see is the elusive American goshawk. As a nemesis bird for many people. I did see it, thanks to Bob and Jenny, but I did not get a photo of it. So my general process when I was out for the year looking for birds is first you got to see it, whether that's with the naked eyes, with optics like binoculars or spotting scope, and then you got to get it in frame if I wanted to get a photograph of it. So seeing it, bringing the camera up, getting it in frame, and then once you get it in frame, you hopefully get it in focus. And after that, then you can do creative stuff. But my personal experience, many of these observations of birds that I saw lasted a whopping like 3 to 5 seconds. So it's not a lot of time to work with in order to capture stuff. Fortunately, we get multiple observations of birds throughout the year. Not all birds, but many of the birds. So even though I have them in chronological order here, these weren't necessarily all the photos that I took on first observation. They were taken throughout the year. During that time, I was working on getting better with taking photographs, specifically with low light and birds in flight shots. So that was a fun thing. Developing my skills over time. I also swapped out a big heavy lens for something smaller. It didn't have quite the range, but it allowed for faster shutter speeds and that sort of thing in lower light conditions. Let's see what else. Some of these photographs have a little smiley face. There's only about a dozen. That just kind of denotes having a first sighting of the birds for the season, not necessarily for the basin itself, but for the season out of all the participants in the thing. Ultimately, my goal with this particular photo selection was just to highlight the diversity of birds here at Lake Tahoe. We have a lot more birds than Stellar's jays and flickers and chickadees, right? There's like a pretty diverse group of birds. We have a lot of different microclimates and habitats, which makes it really fun to find stuff that you wouldn't normally see unless you went out specifically looking for them. And in some of these, we don't always get these nice clean ones where it's got a blurred out background. Sometimes those birds are really hard to see. They're very elusive. So you'll see with the American bittern, for example, it was just in the vegetation, and all I got was really his eyeball sticking out. But that's what they do. They have these nice barred bodies, and they like to stick their heads up, and they like to mimic the reeds and the vegetation around them. So that's what I had to work with, and that's what I did. I also wanted to highlight some of the different habitats through the compositions. Instead of only getting super close up of birds in flight with a pure blue background, I wanted to show some of the just how they look in relation, those birds, to where they like to be. So for example, some of these photos, like the gray-crowned rosy finch, likes to be high in the mountains, Carson Pass, Red Lake Peak area. A lot of volcanic rock there, a lot of lichen on that rock. So when that picture shows up, you'll see it's got nice colored background to it. The bird is different mottled colors and stuff, but it just kind of blends in with the background, and again, makes it hard to get photos in focus of stuff like that. So I just want to kind of, some where's Waldo type pictures, but that's what's fun, is just finding these different habitats where these different birds like to live. They don't always cooperate. Sometimes they're in habitats that they don't belong in, like the rock run that was at Cove East, which is like a quarter mile from the actual lake, and they should be up at Red Lake Peak or at Carson Pass, like far from anyone. Just a little bit more background of how I got into doing these big years. Again, I moved here in 2005, so this year is my 20th anniversary of moving to Tahoe, which is very exciting. I've lived here longer now by far than anywhere else, in spite of being from the upper Midwest, but there's a lot of Minnesota transplants here because, well, we got good snow here and no mosquitoes. So it's very, very nice. I don't know if any of you heard, but there's a flicker out there making some noises. So it's just like always on. 11 years ago, I fell in love with cross-country skiing, so I worked at a cross-country ski center. That's my winter job. And then in the summer, I work up at Angora Lakes Resort. So I'm always outside. And all my life, I think I've always had this nostalgia or this romantic idea of knowing all these different types of birds, flora, fauna that were around, but I've just never gone through the effort to actually learn about them until these last 5-6 years. And I just thought it was the domain of people that went to school for wildlife biology or botany or whatever, right? But with all the resources nowadays, online, guidebooks, we can do a lot to just teach ourselves. But Tahoe, thanks to TINS, thanks to doing these Tahoe Big Years, they're like do-it-yourself nature classes all year long, which is super cool. So in 2019 is when I did my first Tahoe Big Year, and that was a wildflower Big Year. And in that year, I just didn't understand, how intense it could be. It could be as casual as you want it to be, but it could be pretty intense too if you're competitive like me or just a perpetual overachiever. So 2019, I got into this, and the platform for the Wildflower Big Year is iNaturalist, and that's a type of a kind of social media-driven platform that's citizen science-based, filled with lots of different experts on the site where you upload photos, and then they either confirm or correct your identification of that. And that was kind of it, where everything changed once I learned how to use iNaturalist, participated in the Tahoe Big Year, and it was just really good. And then in that year, I don't really know how many people were in there, but I was second behind Bob Sweat. And I documented about 350 plant species, and that was behind Bob's like 700 plant species. So there wasn't really any real competition there, but it was, again, crash course in a DIY type of nature learning experience. So, again, a Tahoe Big Year is a micro version or a smaller version of like the National Audubon's annual Big Year, where it's birds around North America. Here we're in this Tahoe Truckee region. As far as I know, there's not a whole lot of places that have these types of things. There's things called bio blitzes where they'll do like one day and just hammer out as many species counts as you can. You can do big days, big months, all these different things, but we're really fortunate here to have these big years thanks to TINS, simply because it is such a way to get involved in a community aspect, to learn, participate in citizen science, and then just learn about it for yourself. So TINS does these 3-year cycles. There's birds, 1 year, plants, 2nd year, and then 3rd year. Seagull harassing a merganser for whatever reason. The merganser didn't have any food with it. It was just like heckling it the whole time. But yeah, so birds, then plants, and then there's a break here that 3rd year. So 2019 was my first big year doing the wildflowers. 2020 was a break year. It was also COVID year. We also got all that stimulus package for everyone getting laid off. So I invested some money in a good DSLR camera that year. And I kind of self-taught wildlife photography. I spent some time trying to really develop my skills as a wildlife photographer, just getting into it. And then, that was really good. So 2021, I was ready for it. One thing about Big Years too, if you haven't watched the movie The Big Year, I highly recommend. It's based on a book. I haven't read the book. The movie's good enough. It's got Owen Wilson, Jack Black, Steve Martin. Super funny, and that's pretty much exactly how it is, except on a smaller scale for these Tahoe Big Years. So there's an example of a not great picture because I ended up using a different camera that had reach but wasn't very good for getting clear, but diagnostic photo of a greater scope that, classified. Another one too, 3 to 5 second observation, fly by a lesser scope. Fortunately, I got good enough photos to identify that bird. 2021 was a birding big year, so that was the beginning of the cycle. In that year, I saw 201 species. So I like doing things twice, if at all possible. so that I can prove to myself that the first year wasn't a fluke and that I could learn and get better. I recently saw, I don't know, some like interview of a professional athlete, and to be honest, I couldn't remember who it was. I think it might have been like a cross-country ski star, and the comment she made was that we don't train to be the best, we train to get better. And that's kind of like my personality too. I'm not really interested in being like the best at anything, because I know there's always going to be somebody stronger, smarter, faster, more clever, whatever. They have more time to devote to this thing. But if I can be better, then that's what I'm going to try to seek. And anyway, so 2021 was that first one. I had 201 birds, and I was in third place in that year. The next year was another Tahoe Wildflower Big Year, 2022, and I took second place again behind Bob. But I managed to increase my species count by like 200, so I had 560 plants. He had like 800 that year. So, and then last year I ended up doing the birding with 221 species, and I managed to end up in first place. And again, that wasn't on the schedule or the plan. I was fortunate to find a couple of key birds later in the season that nobody else did, and then some of the competitors took some vacations, and that's verboten on big years. You got to stay in the basin. So, but anyway, it's all fun. Again, like we don't care that much. It's all fun. We're all sharing knowledge. The goals that I gave myself for the year was learn, and learn some more. In other words, make sure you had fun. For me, the learning is the fun. The getting better at stuff is the fun. So I was hoping to see new birds in the form of, lifers, what we call like birds that we've never seen before. But I have such a low bird count anyway compared to most birders that calling it a lifer, I mean, I could just go to Sacramento and probably increase my life list by like 100 birds just from there. But so calling it a lifer is whatever, but that's what they are, is they're new birds that we see. I wanted to photograph each species. Again, we didn't need to, but I wanted to. Part of my long-term goal is to photograph every bird that's been recorded in the Tahoe Truckee region, and then use iNaturalist, contribute to scientific research, venture into new locations, discover new habitats, and then just simply be immersed in this experience. Because we're tracking bird patterns, bird species all year long. We're seeing the spring migration, the summer breeding and babies, and then we're seeing the fall migration. And it's a pretty neat thing when you can start on January 1, finish on December 31st, and just see the cycle of activity in the bird world. Obviously, I wanted to log 200 birds again. I wanted to do better than 2021, that I had 201. And I wanted to log those 200 birds a lot earlier than I did in 2021. In 2021, I found my 200th bird on December 7th, and then my 201st on December 17th, and I swore I would not do that again, because it is very stressful to eke out like even 2 or 3 new birds in the last month or two of the year, just because it's hit or miss. With the fall migration, you end up with like an early storm and it blows everything out, or it might bring something in. Most likely, you're not going to be able to travel as easy though. So this one, there's a video, Clark's Nutcracker and White Bark Pine. It's on YouTube. I think it's produced in Colorado, but the interesting relationship between the two. I forgot to say, raise your hand if you have questions. I'm more than happy to like pause what I'm talking about. Yes, Meryl.
So is this year the plant year then?
This is the plant year, yes. That's a great question. I'm officially like retiring from doing big years. I've done 4 now in the I've done 4 in the last 6 years, and I'm tired because I'm obsessed. I get pictures of everything. But yes, it's a plant big year. I've done 2 plants, 2 birds. I'm good. I will still be a part of the projects, just not be grinding like I have been. But with the wildflower, what's really cool is that it's a compressed season. So you're not really going to be looking for much during snowy months. So like right now is a great time to get started. And that one is hosted on iNaturalist. So you have to get on that site and you have to take pictures. And I recommend taking a lot of pictures of each species so that you can get dedicated confirmations about those species. Because just like, oh yeah, it's lupin. Well, guess what? There's like 25 varieties of lupin in here, and they all require almost microscopic understanding of what those are. But anyway, yes, wildflowers this year. I highly recommend trying it out.
What's the name of the bigger bird in there?
That's a stick bird, and we see a lot of stick birds, rock birds. Okay, so smiley face. I was the first one to see the redneck grebe last year out of everyone. Rare bird for Tahoe. Not great photos, but diagnostic, good enough for ID purposes. Just likes to be way out there. And you know, part of the theme that I like to impress upon you throughout this is that I don't do 2-week vacations every year. I don't take vacations. Every day is kind of pretty good quality of life. I work outside, I play outside, so I'll sometimes like bank a couple of 15-20 minutes. I'll leave the house before I got to go to work so I can go check out a water feature to see if I can find some type of species of this. So I try to weave that into my daily life, just having little micro adventures. And those of us that live here at Tahoe have it pretty good because we have wild space all over the place. And as a result, we don't have to make a big production out of getting into nature. Whereas if we did live in some, he's playing the things back there. I wasn't sure what was going on. This is probably the worst picture you'll see today, and it's like really, oh God, the worst. But these little spiky bits here, and you can see the breast, red-breasted merganser. Like I want to get a good picture of them, but they're always so far. They're on the North Shore. More not so great pictures of birds that were so far away, but diagnostic. So like with doing these long-term projects, these year-long projects, burnout can easily happen. I'll pause and talk about this one. Kings Beach, walking around looking for gulls, looking for scoters, Jaegers, whatever. A flock of frenzied black-headed cowbirds and other blackbirds were in a bush. All of a sudden they flew as I walked by. I looked up. There's a bigger one. And yeah, it's
I saw the same thing in the Keys.
Nice, yeah.
Variegated, poof.
They just grab them and go. It's
It's really close.
takeout food, yeah. And for whatever reason, this slideshow is really fast, so I might end up rolling back through here. So if you need me to pause, yeah, this is not doing 17-second things. I can already tell that because I'm feeling rushed. There is northern pintail and cinnamon teal in there, but good luck trying to find it in the short amount of time that this is going to play, but primarily green-winged teals. So, you can get exhaustion, boredom, like it can end up just being a thing that toward the end of this you want to just give up. And I got my 200th bird on August 26th this last time, so I had plenty of time. I had like 4 months, September, October, November, December, to find more stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, what can I do now? I've already gotten 200. Should I just give it up? Yeah, Jeff's greater white-fronted goose. This was a nemesis bird for him for a long time. There's a handful of us hanging out after a TBY outing, just kind of not wanting to go because it was a warm day, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, something's coming. Greater white-fronted goose. And we all looked. 4 seconds later, it's out of sight, and not to be seen again until much later in the season. So this idea of, well, what should I do now? I got 200. I only need like a couple more if I want to break my 2021 roll. But in Japanese kind of culture, they have this term called zanshin. It's continuous mind, continuous flow. It's this idea that we don't just like turn our backs on this thing once it's executed. We stay with it. It's similar to swinging a baseball bat, swinging a golf club. You don't cut it short. You follow through, right? So I decided, okay, I got 4 months. What could I do in those 4 months? And I said, okay, I'm going to give myself a day to just not even worry about it. I got my 200. It's great. So I went out for a walk and found my 201st bird. I'm like, all right, this is not stopping, so we're going to keep going. I only need one now to achieve, but hey, I got plenty of time. Let's go for 210. And then once I got to 210, I went to 215, and then I said, okay, can I squeeze out 5 more? So then I got to 220, and that was, let me see when I got to 220. That was pretty close to the end of the year. Yeah, I mean, this is like the notes to put together, like this is like type A personality right here. So, yeah, 220 was on December 17th. I said, man, 2 weeks. Can I get one more bird to get 221 to get me 20? And it wasn't until, and I said I wasn't going to do this again because I don't want to be grinding until New Year's Eve. But December 30th, I got the northern saw-whet owl, which I was looking for like 4 weeks. And that was a bird. And then I went back the next night with some friends to help them find it, and we found it again. Very cool. But yeah, just this idea of following through on these long-term goals, sticking it out, trying to get better. You know, there's a little bit more like big year data, big year information. It might seem a little bit boring, but I keep saying finding 200 birds, finding 200 birds. Well, what does that even mean, right? When we think of California as a whole, there's been approximately just shy of 700 bird species that have been documented in the entire state. Well, at the Lake Tahoe, Truckee area, we only have about 325 documented birds that have been in this region. So we got like less than half of what all of California's seen. So we have like a pretty small pool. And my first big year for birds in 2021 was like, well, 200 birds. I mean, that's like 65%. That's D work if we're sitting in a classroom. Like I can do this. Like no problems there. You know, like I'm a B plus A minus student always, right? But that's not really the real story. So even though there's been 325 historically documented in the region, a large percentages of those are casual birds. They're vagrants that show up once and never come back. So TINS has this checklist that they put out 2015, 2016, 2016. Yes, and everyone should take one because there's going to be an update eventually. So that checklist has them classified as common, uncommon, rare, and casual. And casual kind of betrays just how rare a bird is, like that word within casual. Oh, okay, well, maybe I'll see him when I'm casually walking. Like, that's not how it works. They show up because of a storm, because a wildfire pushes them somewhere, injury, who knows why. But that casual status, rare and casual actually, that kind of comprises of almost like 130 to 135 of those birds out of those 325 birds. So you can knock off like a ton of birds already. Like those might be one and done. They might show up 5 years from now, but chances are they're not coming back. And the one day that they do show up, you're not going to be there to see them. So that's kind of I didn't know that going into that 2021 big year. I've since learned, obviously, and that's why this year or last year I was like, we're getting 200 as soon as possible. We're going full throttle because I don't want to be grinding in December to find those. So that's like, you know, for example, last year, Jenny Scott, Jeff Miller had a first sighting for the basin of a vermilion flycatcher. That was a big deal. People were coming from all over. Chris Ciano found a thick-billed longspur. There was another expert who was performing a point count over by Spring Creek Tract, yes, just north of Taylor Creek, that found a veery, which is a super rare bird, mostly found on the East Coast, a type of thrush. That was the one that got away, by the way. 3 days, lots of bug bites, frustrations, like never saw it, heard it around us, did not see it. Yeah, so another one, like just even with the yellow belly camouflaged in the grasses, even in the, it's hard to capture, get those guys in focus. The 2021 TBY, Jenny Sweat had a northern water thrush, which was a new bird. I believe with Cheryl, you guys saw the white wagtail as well, another new bird for Tahoe. And then that year as well, Scott Dietrich, rest in peace, he logged the first sighting of Nelson Sparrow on the North Shore. In the non-TBY years of 2020, that
Looks great.
That was my 1 minute sketch today of the bird that I did not get a photo of for this presentation. So I will get pictures. I got 2 crummy pictures of that. Anyway, so in the years 2020 and 2023, Both non-birding years, I have first for the basin a summer tanager and a yellow-throated vireo, respectively. And I know there's other first sightings that I'm just not fully aware of. Yeah, pretty fun one.
I heard those were Baldwin today.
Yes, and I've heard elsewhere as well. Cove East, very good. So this Loggerhead Shrike is Schneider Camp area of Kirkwood Cross Country, very remote, doing a trail maintenance thing. In the morning when the thing went out, I got all the way back up to Tahoe, and like that was not a good picture either, but not easy to get these little swallows with all that other stuff going on. But that Loggerhead Shrike was like, yeah, as far as possible I could be from that thing. All the way back to the center, clocked out for work, drove up, Pope Marsh, wasn't open, got a hike in, and there it was just sitting there, just hanging out by the trail. I was like, oh, you know, it was very good. It's very exciting to see some of these birds like that. But yeah, so the large percentage of those 320 birds are listed as either being rare or casual. So roughly 130, 135 of them, which means about 180 to 185 are common and uncommon. And uncommon doesn't necessarily mean you're going to find them. It's still, you know, for the most part, possible to find them, and they're defined as being often present in the appropriate habitat, but perhaps not consistently over time, and usually in smaller numbers than common species, and therefore less likely to be encountered. But birds like that American goshawk, the northern pygmy owl, the northern saw-whet owl, those are considered to be like full-time residents year-round. They're just uncommon, and there's no guarantee you're going to see them. And like I said, with that saw-whet owl, it took me weeks and weeks of like specifically going out to try to look and listen for them. So even if you did find all the common and uncommon, you're still stuck with like 180, 185 birds. And therefore, you got to find at least 15 or more casual and rare ones. So not an easy task, but that's kind of all our goal when we're doing these big years for the birds is to like, can we get 200? And the statistics aren't great. There's probably, in the 4 cycles of these Tahoe Big Years, there's approximately 4 to 5 each year that have gotten 200. In 2021, there was only 3 of us. Last year, there was 6 of us. So when we're talking about getting 200 birds, Western Cattle Egret found by Megan Walsh and Emily Fry at the Upper Truckee Marsh, just out in the open, dog walking people everywhere, and it just hung out for like 2 days. Very rare, very few records, very cute bird. This guy is hard to get good looks at because he is not, he looks like one of the Angry Birds though. He looks very intimidating and makes some fun noises. But yeah, so the general averages for these 4 years of Tahoe Big Years with the birds, 2015, 18, 21, and 24, 4 to 5 people getting about 200 birds. First place on average gets about 221, and then total species count amongst all participants, about 235. So if you want to get your 200 birds, you're working with 235. And again, those are going to be all kinds of different mix of common, uncommon, rare, and casual. Last year we had about 74 participants, 5 of which were youth. And then we had 40 people get more than 100 birds documented, and 18 people got over 150. And then 2021 had like 100 participants, so we lost a few this last year. But, you know, it's just everyone's got lives, they got to do what they're doing. But yeah, pretty challenging to get 200 birds, so, you know, it's a high bar. Another first sighting, let's see, so lark bunting, that was a new one for the basin, was that correct, last year? Yes, so that was Jeff Hanlon found that one.
No, actually, Clark Bunting, that was the 3rd record of
Third.
individual, but
Okay,
yeah, I was thinking of the pick one.
yes, yeah, that's true. Yep. That's a pretty rare one, thanks to Jenny Scott again finding really cool birds. Didn't have great looks at it. I got about 1,000 shots of this guy, and this is like the best right there. Like, it was harsh lighting. a little blue-gray gnatcatcher with a deformed bill, if you see it upturned, but very, very cute little guy or girl. I couldn't actually say. A lot of those birds, though, too, that people find that are rare or casual end up with like one sighting. So you'll see later in this slideshow that I did catch a long-tailed duck. I was the only one that got one. I was the first to get a ferruginous hawk, and then like the next day, Will got one on the complete opposite side of the basin. So there was only 2 of us that got a ferruginous hawk. So of the 235 birds that were, on average documented, you could knock another 10 birds out because we all leave some on the table. Now, I will say though, in 2021, Jenny Sweat here had like a phenomenal 97% rating. She got, what was that, 231 out of 239 birds seen, which like unbelievable. I had 95%, and that didn't feel great, but like what you got was like incredible, right? Like we don't all see. And again, that great crown rosy finch, not a great photo. I didn't have a great camera, but just all this different color and how easy it would be to just not even see those birds, right? Beautiful birds though. And that was the day that I saw the Hepburn's rosy finch too, so something out of the ordinary subspecies. So any questions still? I know we're kind of rolling along here.
These are great.
Yes?
Sorry, you said for the wildflowers it's on iNaturalist. Is there, is it eBird or it's just a list?
iNaturalist is the website. It does require photos in order to count. You sign up for the project, the Tahoe Wildflower Big Year project, and then once you signed up, everything that you post as far as plant life goes will automatically populate into that project, calculate your numbers for you on the project. It's an iNaturalist project, and then so long as it's in that boundary that's
Right.
established.
If you're asking about the bird platform.
Oh, gotcha.
You've got it.
Oh, understood. Yes. Okay. So with the Tahoe Big Year, there's a whole separate website that you log in the birds. So it's not eBird, it's not iNaturalist. I just used it in conjunction with that to document and confirm my IDs. But it's TahoeBigYear.org is the website, and that's
It's
actually
not pulling from eBird.
correct. Well, no, it's not pulling from eBird. It has its own information from some other resource, but it's just a check in a box, literally a check in a box. But for rare ones and out of season ones, you will need to get like photo documentation to clear with Will, just to make sure that it's like, hey, did you really see that? Kind of thing. So yeah, good question. Different platforms for those. So yeah, you don't need pictures of the birds, but you do for the plants. Yeah, other questions?
What's the story on the golden eagle?
The golden eagle was a fun one. That one was in Washoe Meadows State Park. I was just hiking from my house. I live out in Myers, and I was just going out there, and I got some really nice sandhill cranes. I was actually looking at a couple of sandhill cranes that had been hanging out in there. I was looking for them, and as soon as I walked into the open meadow, like on the far side by the old derelict building, I mean, they had eyes on me, and they hopped up, and then they flew right over the top. And I got some really nice photos. But then as I was standing around, I was like, that raven's like messing with a red tail. Like, yeah, I'll get some pictures of that because I always like seeing the interspecies relationships. What do they do? But Jeff Hanlon, that was a great boating morning. And honestly, it wasn't until I got back, because I'm always very skeptical in the field. I tend to not trust my eyes so much unless I get really good looks at stuff. So I suspend judgment. I don't want to get happy. I don't want to send up like all the bells and whistles of like, oh my God, I saw something, and you find out and there's a robin, or something like that, right? You don't want to be that guy that's sending everyone flying to go find this bird. But anyway, those photos, I took a closer look. I lightened them up, and I was like, oh my God, golden eagle, like, yay. So it was a cool interaction between golden eagle and raven. And I didn't get one of those in 2021, so I was super grateful for having one, especially in Cove East, the sprinkler heads. I mean, they're good perches. But so I ended up seeing like a golden eagle 2 more times up at Carson Pass. Like, it's so funny because I didn't see any, and then all of a sudden you get an abundance. But if you don't see it the first time, you're not ever going to see it, and that's kind of how it works. It's like just random, and a lot of times. This one was after a beer, after a day going out hiking in the snow and looking for some pileated woodpecker. There's our bittern. That's what I get. I don't get a bird in flight or whatever. But that crow was Jeff Hanlon. Hey, I'm at Holiday Market. The Tube Tahoe area still got grass, and there was a crow over here getting harassed. I'm like, what? Throw everything down, drive over. Black turned. Technically, I was there for first sighting, but we were all talking. Yes, and Jeff saw it. Yes.
Are crows rare here?
Crows are very rare here. Yeah, there used to be a lot more, but the ravens kind of pushed them out as kind of the general understanding. So you'll get like one crow out of 10 billion ravens, but they are distinct, and I saw them like 3 times last year. So again, just kind of once stuff is on your radar, you start to get to be able to pick them out a little bit more.
Where
Yes.
did you get the picture of the scrub jay at?
Scrub jay was over off of Lily Avenue on my way to Upper Truckee Marsh. It's a pretty common place for those scrub jays to fly through. But yeah, I was
It was
just.
just migratory then.
Yeah, they don't hang out a whole lot, but they're not as rare. But I didn't get a pinion jay last year though. I was bummed out with that. There was an early season sighting over by Kale Park on the other side of town there. Wasn't able to make it out for that one and never saw him again. Yet the previous year, Jeff had like 100 of them in his yard. So who knows? And I have seen one flying over Little Round Top area, Meese Meadow area, Carson Pass. Another fun, exciting one on the boat. First sighting of the season, yellow-billed. Yeah, good stuff. So some of the other factors that we can kind of consider when we're looking at like what happens is like the snowpack. In 2021, we had tons of shoreline. So we had a lot of shoreline, hundreds of meters in certain areas of shoreline, which it drew a lot of shorebirds to it. This year, we had high water everywhere. Even though last winter wasn't super big, the winter before that was epic. So the reservoirs were still full. And yeah, we just didn't have shoreline, so that was kind of disappointing because there's a lot of cool shorebirds that we get migrating through that we just didn't end up seeing. This was with Heather. Yeah, the one that was just off the trail there. Double-crested cormorant, airing its wings out after it takes bath. Like, he almost walked up to me. I was so close to him, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't move now. I'm going to spook him. It's just kind of like, here he comes, and he keeps coming. Yeah, walking over to a friend's house nearby, hermit warbler, hooray. So the snowpack, the habitats, all that stuff is really dependent. So, certain birds want to be shorebirds in snow. That's a fun one, right? That was an unexpected snowstorm, at least for that guy. I mean, we all know living at Tahoe that winter doesn't technically end until Memorial Day weekend, but they don't always know that. This was after work, just walking around Angora. They've got a lot of little Wilson's warblers. Yeah. So lack shoreline, lack shore birds. Therefore, we got to find stuff elsewhere. Probably one of my most enjoyable. I tried so long to find this. They finally found one near the old Emerald Fire burn scar, just north of Spring Creek, north of Taylor Creek, and then of course we had a blackback woodpecker nest in the tree just at the entrance of the Angora parking lot. So then I saw him every day after that. Again, I was tried for 2-3 months to find that bird on my own elsewhere, and I was like, okay, now I'm seeing them all the time. It's like, are they going to have babies right there when everyone's driving in and out? The day before, I had really crummy looks way across the way. I went out there, and these guys, I was laying on my stomach right at the edge of the water, and they were like, almost again too close in summer. Yeah, very, very cute birds. Lark sparrow, another first of the season and first for me. Beautiful little sparrows though. Love that little face mask.
What about the male and the female different species?
Some of these I didn't denote like male and female. I mean, it's all fair game. If it is, it is. Like right. if that's it. I didn't denote in many of these whether or not it's female, but some of them are.
200 birds, you can have 400 birds.
Yeah, well, no. Oh, I see what you're saying. No, no difference. It's one species, yeah. Whether you get the female pine grosbeak or the male one with the red, doesn't matter, counts as one species. Same goes for like subspecies, more appropriate with like the Gamble's white crowned sparrow versus a mountain white crowned sparrow. White crowned sparrow, that's what it counts as. Female western tanager. It's funny because I was looking to post, a tanager picture, and I have so many good ones from past years, but this year I was like focused on the new birds, and I'm like, okay, I'll take a couple quick pictures just for documentation. But some of them were like red-breasted nuthatch. I got a picture of its butt, and then the one at the beginning where its head is down, I was like, that was the only photos I got all summer. Like, I got a lot of good ones, but ooh, good thing I found them. The rock pigeon from earlier on, one shot of a rock pigeon, and I see them on the way past a grocery outlet every day, Pacific wren, we tried to find that so much, and then when we were looking for the veery, they were all over. Like, okay, we got multiple sightings. Did you get a Pacific wren this year? Yes, yeah. Then the flycatchers, that's a whole other, there's all kinds of levels of difficulty when it comes to identifying birds, flycatchers being one of them. Seagulls, believe it or not, are some of the hardest to identify because they have like a 4 to 5 year maturation period, and they all look the same. Great horned owl, yeah, I got to see a lot of owls this year, which was like a treat for me because I don't hardly see them. This was in the morning. This was pretty early, like just really bright. I had to pull the shadows out, but it was early morning, so I'm not sure why it was out, if it lived nearby or not. Hammond's flycatcher versus, there's flycatchers are hard, but they're fun. And you got audio, you have to learn their sounds as well as their behavior a little bit, and then just some very subtle diagnostic features to tell them apart. Lots of warblers. This one most likely female. Bullock's Oriole, that was the first one for me for the season 2. It kind of felt like early on there was a scarcity in volume of birds. And as the year progressed, I realized that might just be my perception. Because in the 2021 Big Year and even in the 2019 Wildflower one, I kind of like dragged my feet on getting started. I didn't really start until spring migration happened. This year we got 33 species on day one. Like we're like hammering every day, and I think what happened is that you see a bird, you log it off, especially if it's not one that's you're not super enthusiastic about, and you end up like just kind of checking it off, checking the box, done with it. I don't need to focus on that, and that's kind of what happened with those western tanagers. Like I see them all the time. Like I can't burn another 50 shots, 100 shots on another western tanager. I got hard drive issues, going on with all these photos I'm taking and stuff. Sage thrasher, another one, all I got was the eyeball for the most part, but it's a very cute bird. And that was the second time I saw it. So, early in the season, Heather, were you the first to get the sage thrasher last year? She might have been the first one to get the sage thrasher. I went to try for it. A lot of us did. A lot of us didn't get that, but then Cristiano, who also went to it, and he got the thick-billed longspur. So replace one rare one with another, and I'll never remember what this one I actually had to get out of my car and like shush it off the road because it was paralyzed in fear and just standing in the middle of the road. So I grabbed a towel and I kind of like got away. But yeah, the city grouse, very cute. What is the effect?
Patagonia picnic table effect.
Can you explain that briefly?
Yeah, so there's a rest area in southeast Arizona that's good for varied buntings and some other rare stuff. And anyway, rare things turn up there, and then people go chase the rare thing. But they don't find the first rare thing, they find a second rare thing. And so that happens a lot with birding. And so anyway, that just at some point got crowned, named the Patagonia picnic table effect.
Yeah.
You go looking for the first rare thing, but find a new rare thing.
Yeah, and
we've seen that a lot.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because you got to get all the birds. Little tiny warblers, little tiny hummingbirds. Fortunately, I have a good location now, Friends Hummingbird Feeder. I know where to find calliope's now. I didn't get one of those in 2021, and I saw like 5 of them last year, so just one of those things you get it going. Flycatchers, they're hard. Yeah, so I think the perception of like feeling like there wasn't enough or that we were too early. I think all year, this was like my favorite bird of the year, I think. Just a nighthawk that would fly around our neighborhood just about every night for like 2 weeks. Yeah, super fun to find and super fun to hear. They make buzzy sounds. Another frustrating one that almost got away. Lots of mosquitoes, lots of scratches from banging through the brush to try to find this guy. Finally did and got a really crummy photo. Diagnostic though, identifiable. This one, I won't apologize for that because I'm surprised I even got a photo, but me and Jeff running after Poor Wills up Angora Ridge Road in pajamas basically with flashlights and like low light camera photography. And that was a super fun one. We got some Poor Wills and some Nighthawks that night. But yeah, it's just, you got to go when it's time to go. This one, so we end up chasing a lot of people's birds, other people's birds. So this lark bunting is the one that Jeff found up at Carson Pass. Like, there's one up there, go find it. Like, all right, we're gonna go find it. And it gets frustrating at this one. That's just a fun picture, right? It just looks goofy. Yeah. I don't know if he was doing that for my benefit or from any female around, but yeah. Yeah, just funny. But yeah, we end up chasing a lot. So there was, for example, this text chain that was going on, and by April 1st, I had to get off of it because it was like a group text is my nightmare. And then it started to grow, and then we're hearing about everything. Very cute, very cute. And at that point, it wasn't so hot on my low light photography, so I didn't get as good of photos as I could have. I'll do better next time. But I had to get off the text message chain because it was just becoming so much. And again, being like obsessed, I got to go find them all. So I didn't go on my own. We're all still communicating. And friends of mine were on the text chain. And I'd share stuff. But it's nice to be able to find first of the season and rare stuff. Another one, speaking of friends showing, black chin hummingbird at Bob and Jenny Sweat's house. I've seen one before, male with a nice purple plumage. This one, either adolescent or female, I don't remember, but just an easy one to get to because of its location, but not an easy one to find in general. But yeah, that's one thing that I love about doing these big years, and it's probably kind of one of the themes that I think Will wanted to establish in doing these big years, is just creating this community of friends, of camaraderie, of people who want to learn about being outside at Lake Tahoe, find cool stuff, share that cool stuff in a good way, in a meaningful way, not trying to blow up a spot because something rare is there and then have everyone trample over everything, but just give people the opportunity to find cool stuff here at Lake Tahoe. So that's underlying theme too, and in addition to daily adventures is meeting a cool community of people. So the Western Flycatcher, rare one. Oh God, that was a good one. Another flycatcher, hard to find, hard to ID. So the camaraderie that comes with all this stuff is really what's fun about it, is just getting to know people and getting to do cool stuff with people. Learning about habitat, learning about Tahoe, so that we know that, maybe we shouldn't just let dogs chase after every bird that's on the shore, because maybe that bird is just resting on its way to the coast and it needs a break, for example. So learning about this stuff. Foxes, swifts, we saw a ton of those, and those I don't normally see because I just didn't know, but they're very distinct. Northern mockingbird, I'm sure you've all seen the meme. Hey, is that a northern mockingbird? Hey, is that a northern mockingbird? When you look at bird pictures, you get birders that do funny stuff, and that's one of the things. So there was 12 birds that got away from me black-bellied plover, chestnut-sided warbler, common tern, great-tailed grackle, parasitic jaeger, short-billed dowitcher, surf scoter, thick-billed longspur, varied rush, thrush, veery, and a Wilson's phalarope. Of those birds, one sighting of that plover, one sighting of that chestnut warbler, one sighting of the common tern, one sighting of the jaeger. So again, it's just one of those things where just because it's on the board doesn't mean you're going to get it, and it's a challenging thing to find. The white whale, if there was to be one, is that I was hoping to find. I was hoping to be the only one. Never found it. Never got anywhere near to finding it. But it's white-tailed ptarmigan. And Will has some observations that were near the Red Lake Peak, Stevens Peak area. So on my cross-country ski journeys and hiking journeys, I would try to go find that one. It's a really cool bird. I think it was introduced in the 70s as a game bird from maybe Colorado. Is that correct? Yeah. And it migrated. It was mostly in the southern Sierra, but it migrated part north. And yeah, this one, ash-throated flycatcher, after Jeff and Heather drove away to go to another spot where I was dragging my feet on getting out. There it was. Hey, just saw it. Like, no. They ended up finding it, though, so all was not lost. But it was one of those things where, yeah, sometimes it just happens. But anyway, the white-tailed ptarmigan made its way somewhat north. There's been sightings of it in that Meese Meadow, Red Lake Peak area. Maybe more on the outside of the watershed, but it was also, just not many observations of it. So I was hoping to find it.
Does it
Yes.
turn all white in the winter?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so hard to find in the winter, but also hard to find in the summer because then they're brown and they mix in with all the vegetation and rock, right? So it's just kind of natural camouflage. But yeah, that was kind of the white whale. Probably what I'd say, if I was to classify one observation as my favorite outside of that common nighthawk, it was going to Carson Pass on the north side by the Tarn, that small pond there that basically is the southern portion of the Tahoe Basin watershed. There's a small pond there, and that's essentially what becomes the Truckee River, upper Truckee River. Perfect timing. So this experience here, bullets of like birds zooming by for like weeks. I went up there with Heather to find the prairie falcon. It took us a couple times. We finally did, but in the process, we saw like dozens of those Townsend's warblers, and it's just where like, if I was looking north, Little Round Top Ridge, Red Lake Peak, Stevens Peak, this little gap here, fall migration was happening and so many birds were just zooming by there. So just a great variety of birds. So I kept going back there from like late August to middle or late October, hoping to catch some other birds. And I did. Another flyby, 3 to 5 second observation, and it was reacquired by Jenny and Bob later that afternoon on the boat over by Baldwin Beach. This was closer to the upper Truckee Marsh and Reagan Beach. Just super quick, get some shots. Did we get it? Yep. Check in the box, hooray. Would have been nice to get a better observation, but you get what you get, and you just have to be ready for it. But that experience on the north side of Carson Pass at that small pond was like really, powerful. It was just really cool because we got to see a variety of birds, a lot of cool stuff flying through, mixed flock, and I thought, God, this would just be fun to do just in general, come up here for a couple weeks in a row. And lo and behold, Ferruginous hawk, same thing. All those other birds migrating through. This guy flew up from Meese Meadow and took a right-hand turn west, went over the ridge at Little Round Top, never to be seen again, except for the next day up on the North Shore, but it wasn't the same bird. American goldfinch, I tried a lot for this. This was an all hands on deck. There was Jeff and Alex in the boat. There was Don in his kayak. There was Jenny Scott on foot. And then there was me running down the beach after getting the word. Yeah, barred owl, they're beautiful, yet they push out spotted owls. So there is concern that this could take over some of our spotted owl territory. I don't know that we have any more word on how often it's been seen. Rare one, lesser blackback gull. Gulls, hard to spot, but this one was very distinct. Yeah, we're kind of getting close to the end here. It's perfect timing because it's like 6:30, right? Bonaparte's very cute little guy. The worst birding experience probably was the Veery. That was that very rare one, and that one was just kind of a junk show out there. It was in kind of sensitive land. People from all over the state were coming up to see this rare bird, kind of trampling on sensitive land, doing playback with sounds both of a Veery and of a predator bird, trying to flush it out. It was just kind of like, it was not a great experience, and we found a trail on the backside of this area, which was actually a normal trail through regular pine duff. So I didn't feel bad looking 3 days for it, but where everyone else was seeing it was just really sensitive land, and it was just kind of a bummer. But yeah, and some of the behavior by people, so they blew up the spot basically. But it is what it is, you know. Stuff will grow back. It's not the end of the world. One of the unfortunate thing, well, I won't get into that yet, but if I was to estimate how many hours, so this was another 3 to 5 second long-tailed duck. I'm on the beach, got my binoculars up, looking. Oh shit! Like, I think I got it. I think that's a long tail. Oh my God! This was another bad picture. This was about a 2 to 3 second observation. We had a big group at Cove East, looking for owls, looking for a barn owl that Jenny Sweat found the day before. Instead, we get the long-eared owl that zoomed by between gaps in forest, and I happen to get at least identifiable. Got the barn owl that I saw that same night do a flyby, but I wanted to get definitive picture, so me and Jeff went and looked and spent about 3-4 hours bushwhacking through snow and stuff, only to find it on our way out. And this was the elusive one for the last bird of the year. Again, same location around Cove East, walking through the dark in the forest, hoping that I'm not getting mauled by a bear or attacked by whatever. And I could hear the boop, 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 boop. And I was like, okay, here it is. Let's go find it. And sure enough, there it was. That was December 30th. And the 31st, I went back and helped Jeff and Heather find it as well. So very excited. Yeah. So that's pretty exciting right there. That maybe it was 16 or 17 seconds. I don't know.
15 seconds.
15. Okay, that was, yeah. I felt a little bit rushed, but I just want couple more bits here about just doing this big year. Conservative estimate of how many hours I spent birding last year would be 1 hour a day. So 365 hours, 15 full 24-hour days of birding last year. That would be conservative though, because there's a lot more. More realistic estimate would be like 2.5 hours a day. I was birding before work, after work, kind of at work too. So, that was just all part of the game, right? But yeah, that works out to be like 912 hours, which is like 38 24-hour days. So 38 full day, like if we broke them down to like 12 hours, that's 72 days or whatever. That's like a good portion of the year that is only devoted to looking for birds. So again, I'm an overachiever, and I was trying to find as much as I could. There is kind of the necessary evil that goes with that, though, is like you don't get the benefit of just being able to see birds outside your front door. You got to drive places. So I don't even want to calculate mileage on that because that'd be depressing. But yeah, a lot of driving involved, a lot of making trips that you might not otherwise go and make. But part of that deal with that daily adventure is combining tasks. Hey, I'm running groceries, gas, whatever in town. I'm going to stop over here, I'm going to stop over there, I'm going to stop over there. So you combine activities, and that's when you can find some of the coolest stuff, is when you're not really trying too hard. It's just a casual stop here, stop there, take a look, boom, all right. And that's, again, one thing that's really cool about Tahoe is that we have all this wild space, these CTC lots, Forest Service lots mixed in with urbanized kind of areas so that there is habitat for species to be in. And therefore, we can go look at those habitats and maybe find something that we wouldn't otherwise see if we're just beelining it to the grocery outlet or whatever, So we got to be out of here by 7 sharp. We have 25 minutes. I got plenty of time for questions and answers. It would also be great if we could get a team of volunteers, like before we're done, to help stack chairs as well. But let's go with questions. Samia.
I was just curious, the two different times that you did the Big Year,
Yeah.
did you notice a certain area changing a lot in that time in terms of the amount of sightings that you had? Like I'm thinking about Cove East and how much that area has changed.
Yeah.
Certain areas that were really hot spots for you before that are different now, or?
I think the upper Truckee Marsh is kind of held, except for the fact that there was a lot less shoreline there, so there wasn't the shorebirds. So it kept going back and forth. It's like, oh God, I hate going there and not seeing anything, right? So that one seemed pretty standard, you know, in spite of not having that shoreline. Cove East, definitely dramatic makeover, right? But it gives us a wide field of view of looking at that whole area, and those ponds ended up being really nice. So Cove East used to be kind of social trails that goes out to the lake, and the trails used to go right along the river there that would, you know, shoot out into Lake Tahoe. And that whole area now has like 3 distinct ponds, one big one, smaller as you get towards the lake. And that was all dry with forest in the middle of it. So you had to either go one side or kind of cut through it. It's kind of weird. But now that it has all that water, those water features, it does look like it yields a lot more cool stuff that you would only find at the upper Truckee Marsh on the other side of the actual river. So that's kind of what I found.
What kind of bird is the cheeseburger bird?
Mountain chickadee.
Oh, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mountain chickadee, famously the cheeseburger bird. Yes.
Was there a spotted owl in there?
So we had one person on the Facebook birding group that found a spotted owl, but they were not participating in the Big Year.
Okay.
So it was on the table, but none of us actually found it.
Okay.
Yeah, I tried a bunch of times, but no luck. Yeah. Other questions?
Had any effect on the success?
Okay, so if you're unfamiliar, Merlin is a audio app that you can use to ID birds. I've used it over the last like 2-3 years, and then I stopped using it this last year for the most part. Whatever update they did at the last this last update, just in my opinion, rendered it kind of useless. It just wouldn't find birds. It wouldn't find my location. And therefore, I'm like standing there looking at my phone like, come on, it's right there. I can hear it. I can't see it, but I can hear it. And it's not doing anything. And in the meantime, my hands aren't on my camera. My hands aren't on my optics. I'm not paying attention to the thing necessarily. So I have used it with some good success, but it also will pick up all kinds of stuff. So people will troll with Merlin. They'll just walk around like this, like, oh, it says right there, like this super rare bird that's only seen in like East Africa. Like, it must be true, you know. So we rely on this technology, and it's kind of frustrating because we get a lot of false sightings based on this. Well, did you play it back and listen to what it thought was this bird and hear for yourself what you think? No, I just saw. Well, that's not helpful. Like, it's helpful if you get the audio recording, go back to the audio recording, find where that bird was identified in Merlin, and then go to the sample sounds that Merlin provides of that bird, compare what you heard in that recording to what actually has been recorded, and then send out the red alert text. Not before that, because it just screws everyone up. Like, I got to drive into town from Myers because somebody got on Merlin this. So my opinion, I kind of stopped using it, although I do use it just because it's a quick audio thing to record. So for me, it's still an audio file that I can download onto my computer later and use that as reference for finding out whether or not this was it. So mixed feelings about that particular app, in spite of it having been really good in past years for me. So, yes?
Do you remember what time of night it was when you got to saw it?
It was like right after dark, but that was also like December 30th. So that would have been about 5:30 at night on December 30th. So
Have to light it up?
I did light it up to get its picture. Yeah, it wasn't sitting there for like 20 minutes or anything, but yeah, just enough to get the photo and call it a day. But yeah, that was like, you know, you time your hike so you're out there at, you know, dusk, and then you're walking back in the dark, and you got the flashlight and you're listening and stuff like that. And a lot of those owls over in the Cove East area were pretty active right around 5, 6, 7 o'clock. But at that point, it's like, it's dark. I got to go home. You know, and it's getting cold. Other questions? Yes.
Do you see a lot of bald eagles in those stages of mature thing? It takes them about 5 years.
Yes. Yeah, we have a pretty healthy group of bald eagles that live here. If you're interested in them, we do the midwinter bald eagle count. TINS puts that on January 15th every year. But yeah, we do see a bunch of different. Oh, go ahead.
Second Friday.
Second Friday. Okay, second Friday
Second Friday
of January. Second Friday of January every year, bald eagle count, and we have people located all around the lake that document. Very detailed, data-oriented project. But yes, lots of different ages and stuff like that. And
They tend to, well, I found a photo and every year they look a little bit different.
Yes.
Fully a bald eagle.
yep.
So it must be a little difficult sometimes.
Those-
to fly by and
Yeah, so that brings up a good point. When you're not taking pictures, you don't have to worry about accountability quite as much. When you are taking pictures, like, nope, that wasn't it, or whatever, right? So there was a lot of people who got a golden eagle that was flying over the upper Truckee Marsh, which me and at least one other people think, no, that was a juvenile baldy. And that's fine, because that's not their habitat. They like being in high desert scrubland. In spite of the fact that I saw one at Washoe Meadow State Park, so maybe it was. But we all kind of saw one juvenile that really looked like it could have been a golden, but definitely different characteristics that make them separate the two. And there's like turkey vultures and dark morph red-tailed hawks that can be mistaken for golden eagles as well. So, all right, we should probably wrap up. Feel free to come and chat. Yes, thank you.